Hey, you know how you're awesome? Well, why don't you continue being awesome by checking out my podcast, Waffle Box? Because why the fuck not? I don't know what I'm doing with that hammer. Crazy.
Sweet, 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 science cinema. Sweet, 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 science cinema. What up, Kush Hayes, Mr. North Star, Mr. Student of the game. Life's always good, it's the tea for America. Sweet like OG, it's sweet science cinema. What up, Jaimel, Hall of Fame wrestler, creator with the feel. Son of a boxer, comic book artist. Sweet science cinema, know what my favorite part is? The whole thing. The whole thing, from the great white hype to Rocky and Creed, the Raging Bull. Oh no, I shouldn't spoil it. Come check out this episode and you'll find yourself enjoying it. Sweet, 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 science cinema. Sweet, 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 science cinema.
And there's the bell. What's good, y'all? Kush Hayes here, comedy Sweet Science Cinema number 5. We got one more episode before the season finale, before the end of the year. And, well, let's bring in our friend, Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer, Jamil Hemphill. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, excited for the penultimate episode of season 1 of Sweet Science Cinema. Great to be here.
Remember when no one knew that word before Breaking Bad, and then everybody
Yes.
all of a sudden is a pipe-smoking scholar? Like, ooh, I've got leather patches on my elbows. That's a penultimate.
I have many fine leather-bound books sitting behind me.
Everyone's a fucking Mensa candidate after Breaking Bad. Yeah, man, we get a little serious today, man. We are talking about Norm Jewisons The Hurricane, 1999, Denzel Washington, Liev Schreiber, bunch of Canadians. It's this is a sad and serious movie, Jamil.
Yes,
why did we pick
yes.
this one?
This one is, this is part of the narrative of our first season, Kush. Like, this is like, you get the somber, slow episode right before the bombastic finale. That is what this movie is for us. This is a sad movie. Like, I know, like, boxing is not what this movie is about. It is about a boxer, but it is about him being wrongly convicted of a triple homicide and spending 20 years in prison. This is based on a true story. Reuben Hurricane Carter. He was convicted of a triple murder in Paterson, New Jersey, finally exonerated 20 years later in 1985. But he was, in the film, concentrates on his life from 1966 to 1985. So it's really dealing with him in prison. It's not really talking about him boxing. Like, the boxing aspect of this is that, gosh, his career was cut short because of this conviction. So, but it also is probably one of Denzel's finest performances. Denzel Washington starring in this movie. I always joke that Training Day was a makeup Oscar given for stuff that he should have won for, and I believe that the stuff he should have won for is probably tied between this and Malcolm X. One of those movies should have probably got him his Oscar, but instead they waited and realized that was a bad mistake and gave him one for Training Day.
Yeah, you mentioned the Oscars. This would be his role in this movie would be the only Oscar nomination for this picture, and then he would ultimately lose out to Kevin Spacey for American Beauty.
That didn't.
It was a weird year. It does not age well at all. In fact, when you're watching it live, there's a couple times like I'm uncomfortable. But that's a whole other podcast. Let's see. Like you said, this is based on a true story. This is actually based on 2 books. One is Reuben Carter's book, The 16th Round, How I Went from Number 1 Contender to Prisoner Number, a bunch of numbers. And then Lazarus and the Hurricane, which is written by 2 other folks that were actually in the story. Let's talk about our characters. At one point, we meet up with some Canadians.
Yeah.
So they're a trio. Their relationship isn't really defined. They say they're all friends, but it feels like something else is happening. There's no reason that just 3 people, like, we just flip homes and we adopted a kid in Brooklyn. And we don't need to get into everyone's story. But yeah, that's a weird relationship, that whole thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting part of the story. And I'll be honest, my knowledge of Mr. Carter is just of this movie. So I never read the books, which is unusual for me, I know. But I mean, Lursa Martin does have a Wikipedia thing, so Lesra is a real person. So that was my question. I was like, oh, were they even real people?
That's a great question because there are a couple liberties taken within this movie. We'll get more into that later. But yeah, Lesra is a real dude. He was adopted by this Canadian trio. They taught him how to read. What was he, like 15, 16?
Yeah, and he didn't know how to read. And ends up becoming a lawyer. Go figure.
A lawyer in British Columbia, Canada, as opposed to I think the title card said Toronto, maybe Ontario, but British Columbia is where he's residing now. And he's involved in a lot of projects, again, helping people that are wrongly convicted of crimes that they should not have been. We go all over the place. This movie feels like it's like 2, maybe even 3 movies here.
Yeah.
We meet Reuben Carter when he's a child. And all he's trying to do, just kids being kids. And then some creep shows up and he defends his friend from getting molested. And that seems to just, per the movie, set off this whole spiral of just bad events that plague him his entire life, and just spends more than half of his life in jail just for random occurrences. We meet Dan Hedaya, Nick Tortelli from Cheers. Now, in the movie, he plays a dude named Sergeant Della Pesca, but he's apparently a composite of other people, of like 3 or 4 different cops. The cop that gets Reuben Carter booked for the triple homicide, that's Sergeant Detective Vincent J. DeSimone. I totally butchered his name, but he dies in 1979. So and Dan Hedaya there is acting like a cartoon villain in court, just like, oh, my arch nemesis, this 11-year-old child is getting away. It's really out of place, and it made me start looking up things. I regret to inform everybody, like I watched this just last night and one more time before today. I wish I'd done more prep for this because Reuben Carter's quote-unquote accomplice is a man named John Artis, and we almost see nothing of his experience. Like his biggest crime was just wanting to be a designated driver for the champ. He was just fanboying out. He was like, yo, man, can I give you a ride home? Sure. And then just wrong place, wrong time, and he gets triple life. By the way, I'd say the guy who plays him gives the best performance in this. Like, I'm with him. Like, I'd be probably crying more. Garland Witt is a guy who played John Artis. He should be in this more. So here's his story. The title cards just say, and because of all this, he got out.
Right.
The real story is this. He just had a terrible time in prison, as one does. And then he came down with something called Burgess disease in 1981. This leads to several fingers and toes needing amputation. And because it's prison, it's not real good medical care. So he ends up suing the state of New Jersey for proper medical care. Well, fuck all that, man. He now is missing fingers and toes. Just release him, put him on parole. 11 days after that, he's out. Then in 1985, finally, the federal judge overturns all the convictions. So his record is supposed to be clean now. He just lost all that time of his life, but his record should be clean. 1 year later, he is actually charged with conspiracy for possession and distribution of cocaine. He pled guilty. He received 6 years. And 5 of those years was because the judge was looking at the not updated record and just went, well, you're still a menace and you're not blah, blah, blah. You need to be held in longer, but I'm only going to give you 6 years. Finally, he's released 3 years later because the state of New Jersey, who started all this bullshit, went like, yeah, that's not right. This should have never happened. And we're terribly sorry, Mr. Artis. Happy news, happy ending for John Artis. He is a public speaker, also living in Canada now. And he's just telling the story and just like, trying to keep kids out of the system. And that's that dude's rough life, man. Like, I don't wish that on anybody.
Yeah. All of them had trouble. Even then, Carter himself, developed prostate cancer. He passed on in the in 2014. Yeah, and the crazy part is that John Artis came back and was there with him at the end. He took care of him during his his convalescence in the end of his life. They're two really good friends, and so we see post emancipation. Both these guys became Canadian citizens. They just said "F the U.S."
I don't blame them.
Yeah.
In my notes here for John Ortiz, this is from, and all my notes came from a Washington Post article in the year 2000 because the movie got all this press. The judge finally pulled him aside and said, like, "Look, man, you keep having too much bad. Get the fuck out of New Jersey, okay? Like, I'm telling you, you don't have to go, but it's in your best interest to just leave." And you got a point there, Your Honor.
Wow.
We spend a lot of time behind bars, and it's not even necessarily life in prison. It's this gentleman's experience. Like, how does he cope with it? Like the shields he puts up. He goes through a lot of just wild self-discipline that not even Wesley Snipes has in Undisputed, where he's just like, I'm gonna sleep during the day and I'm gonna stay up all night. I don't know how you do that, FYI.
Yeah.
Like, prison is notoriously a very loud place, so and you sleep during the day is fascinating.
I think, when you look at some of the reviews of the movie, like, people say, like, oh, this is a schlocky movie, but it's elevated by Denzel's performance. And I don't think the movie is actually very schlocky at all. I think the point of the movie is his experience rather than the details of him getting arrested and released. It's really about his emotional state through his stay in prison. And that allows Denzel Washington to completely elevate the movie. It revolves around his performance as this man. And so I think, once again, I think that's why it's Oscar worthy, because it revolves just around this performance. The crux of the movie is his emotional state throughout his stay. That's the whole point of the movie. And Denzel does what Denzel does. And this is back before Denzel just played Denzel in every movie. And like, he really
he earned it.
Yeah, he really vanishes into the role. So, like you said, sleeping all day, and I mean, some of those things that he does are unbelievable.
His first 90 days in solitary confinement, or just that whole evolution of his character, where he physically splits into 3 personalities, and he's just he's just reenacting every part. It's torturous. You're just like, oh man, like that's what those little cells do to you.
Yeah.
He then comes out. We get a lot of show and not tell, and I guess for the most part that's great. But I feel like maybe we've been conditioned for like a little tell. What do you think is up with the Kurgan, Clancy Brown? He's not necessarily the warden, but he's the top cop in the prison, and he just treats him like a human being. Like, and I think that's what helps Denzel. Like, okay, feeling a little safer here now. Like,
that is one of those things where it's like, I had to go back and look. I'm like, is that a real person? Or is that the end for the audience to feel like, oh, I'd be that person? Because it's hard to watch. It's like whenever you watch a slavery movie, there's always the one good person who comes in at the end and saves everybody and whatnot. It's like, yeah, that guy didn't exist. Like Brad Pitt's character in 12 Years a Slave, like, he didn't exist. He's just there for the audience to feel good and say, like, oh, there was one good person back then. And I just, CEOs aren't the greatest group of people now. So I find it hard to believe that in the 70s and 80s, there was like the dude in charge got there by being a nice guy. So, so I'm like, is that a real person, or is that just someone, a surrogate for the audience so that we're not watching torture porn?
He definitely helps de-escalate the situation. Like, we start the movie off with the riot squad's about to come in just for Hurricane Carter, and he calms everything down. He's like, hey, come on, it's Jimmy, talk to me. One thing about that scene is, like, he's talking about, they're gonna toss my bunk, they're gonna take my manuscript from me. I don't know all the rules in anything of regarding prison, but I do know, like, he's got a TV set in there, he's got a typewriter, he's got a couple cans of soup and something to heat him up. Why would they care about his manuscript? How would that be contraband? It's never explained, and maybe it's just there to build a really tense scene. One thing, again, going back to the missing tell, would it have been better if we had a scene where he was like, why are you being so nice to me, CEO Clancy Brown? And he'd be like, well, my dad used to tell me stories about Hurricane Reuben Carter, and he'd be like, no one can punch the hurricane, and like something about just like, yeah, I used to be a fan of yours as a kid, or
That would
you
have made
got
it more.
robbed.
That would have made it more believable. I think
Okay.
just to say that I'm a fan or something, like that
Yeah.
would make a lot more sense than I just find it hard to believe that this is like, well, this guy looks like he needs a friend. Like, like I find it really hard to believe, you know. So
he does years. He's still doing years, and at one point, the wife comes to visit him, and she's like, "Hey, we're gonna do another demonstration," and she's spouting off like a. I mean, to be fair, I mean, I guess she's liking the attention, but like there's a lot of exciting stuff. She's like, Muhammad Ali is gonna be there, and the chick from The Exorcist is gonna pop by, and then Bob Dylan's writing a song, and he's just like, I guess, okay, like none of this really matters to me. Like I started thinking about like, what if that scene was happening today? Like, Jaimel,
yeah,
we're you've been in here for 5 years, but guess what, man? We got John Legend, him and the bearded lady from The Greatest Showman. They're going to be doing a jingle for Chrissy Teigen's bake sale. I mean, it's just a good song. Don't worry about that. But Bernie Sanders is going to dab on the Senate on TikTok. Jael Sonnen says he's going to pass out flyers at the Dairy Queen. Greta Thunberg gave everyone a vicious tongue lashing. Little Nas X is going to give Hitler a lap dance.
yeah, it's gonna.
They made you a Google Doodle. Did you know that? Did you know Jeff Bezos donated 1,000 wells in your name? Like,
wow,
exciting
1,000?
stuff is happening on the outside here. Like, I wish you could see it. I don't know. It's a heartbreaking scene, despite all that laughter we just had. Where he's like, I'm not getting out. I'm doing triple life. It's not happening. You need to move on. And I got a little misty-eyed. Not gonna front.
It's a good movie, and once again, like I said, everything hinges on Denzel's performance. Like, because this is all about his suffering at the hands of the system or whatever. But it's all about it. It's all about it. But like I just this is an emotionally challenging movie to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Normally this is the part of the episode where I talk about how awesome the boxing is, and I completely forgot it. I just like you, I always try to watch the movie the day before so that I don't lose my my train of thought. Yeah, when we record, but I don't remember the boxing at the beginning of the movie.
It's not important to the story. In fact, the 3 fights we do get, we just get fractions of it. We see him obliterate 2 dudes, and then in his championship bout, he's screwed for the title, and he just leaves. He laughs to himself and he leaves. What's great about those scenes is they're filmed like the old newsreel footage. You got a nice little stripe going down. It's very It's barely noticeable, excuse me, but it's something I caught on my second viewing this morning. I was just like, oh, this would be Wild World of Sports on ABC in 1967 or whatever year it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's definitely like, this is a movie where I chose it because it was a boxer, and it's a very good movie and a well acted movie, but this is the one movie that we've done this year where boxing has no effect on the story. It just doesn't matter, which is funny because Denzel Washington worked with a boxing trainer for a year to prepare for this movie.
Yeah, I read that. And then you see the result, and you're like, well, I bet they had a lot of half days. Just still fine. It's still fine. We're not trying to make the next Rocky here. We're trying to tell a story about injustice and hardship, and I think they achieved that here. Let's just go back to the Canadians real quick. Like, at some point, the kid they adopt, he picks up the book. That's how they get involved in all this. He found a book at the book fair, bought it for a Canadian quarter, and then he just plows through it. He's like, I'm connected to this. This is my life. I want to start writing him. And the family's being very supportive. They even go out to visit him and all that. But then at some point, the kid gets aspirations like, yo, we got to get him out. And it's like, they try to reason like it's been 15 years. There was 2 jury trials. We're in Canada, FYI. Like, where do we fit into all this? But then they're at the law office and like, we'll let you look at whatever you want. But other people have tried to do this. You know, people of notable acclaim, just random people, and everybody at some point just hits a wall. What is it about these folks that other lawyers couldn't do it? Like the law firm themselves, they say up front, like, we're doing this pro bono. This is actually just kind of just for our resume, really, in no uncertain terms. But they have storage rooms of evidence, and they couldn't find these like 2 missing pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the real life stuff to say what's going on, but like it's weird. Like I was just looking up while we were talking. I tried to look up Lesra, and it just says he just goes on, and then his dogged determination drags everyone along. But it seems like his parents connected him with activists, and the activists took it from there, and he was like the face of it there.
That's right. The summer job at the EPA. They keep.
Yeah. So like I think that's what, but it's just it's like that South Park episode where it's like step 1, grab other underpants. Step 2, step 3, profit. It's like step 1, realize there's a problem. Step 2, step 3, he's free. And so I think that's where the movie maybe we need to get a hold of the books and read them, but if there's a not necessarily a plot hole, but if there's something lacking in the movie, it's that they focus so much on his emotional state and what he's going through that we don't understand the mechanisms that actually got him free. It's just like, here's some people, they want you to be free, and then all of a sudden title card comes up, he was free, and they did it. You know?
And they did it.
Yeah. and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I think if you're watching this movie to understand exactly how Hurricane Carter got out of jail, I think you're going to have some questions after you're done. But if you're watching it to see an amazing set piece, basically, of Denzel Washington acting his butt off about a guy who's unjustly accused, then you're getting exactly what you paid for. So,
the guy who played Lestra is Visalis Shannon, and he's, where is he from? Here, real quickly, he's from Memphis, Tennessee. There's a couple of times where he goes a little method country, like he gets his letter. And he just starts spewing off things that I don't think anyone from Brooklyn would ever say. The family all meets Denzel in cell. He's like, I can't stand it. And it's like, whoa. But he's actually had a great career. All jokes aside, he does a lot of TV. But he was President Palmer's son in 24 right after this.
Yep. Yeah, he was 24, Judging Amy. Parenthood. Moesha, he's been in a lot of things. Sister, the CSI, did a lot of that, and he's been in a few films too. So good stuff.
So, Norman Jewison, he's the director of this. This guy, he's kind of like the Sean Livingston of directors. Like his game is strong, but because he's just in this sea of greatness, like he gets underlooked a lot. But every now and then, just comes in and saves the day. He was doing TV all the way like during the 1940s, but it's his body of work, despite being like 40, 60 titles deep. Like he did In the Heat of the Night in '67, Thomas Crown Affair '68, Fiddler on the Roof, one of my favorites, Rollerball. Moonstruck. He's got 4 Best Picture and 3 Best Director nominees, and he retired finally at the age of 72. He's a Canadian. I thought for a minute we were getting a Canadian link here, because Norman Jewison is Canadian, the blonde chick is Canadian. I almost thought Liev Schreiber was Canadian, but it turns out he's actually from San Francisco. And I was like,
really?
Yeah, he was born here.
Okay.
Maybe he's still a Canadian resident. But,
one note on Norm Jewison, he is still alive, kicking at 94 years of age. God bless him, many, many more years. Nice that he's got to enjoy a nice long retirement after giving us so much entertainment. That's cool.
Yeah, I forget what it was, his final movie, but it's just very simple film. The Statement. Okay.
The Statement was his final film.
That's Michael Caine, and it's something about hunting Nazis or something.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
he did a nice little dramatic piece, but he was like, you know what, I'm 72, I can't do a Pirates film, just leave me alone. I did Fiddler on the Roof, I don't need to do anything else. It's fine.
Exactly, I'm done. Yeah, but he's got a lot of my movies that I remember fondly from my childhood. Not that I watched them in my childhood, but they were popular. It's like Moonstruck, Other People's Money. He's done a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I sincerely recommend everyone here check out his body of work.
Yeah.
The Hurricane, again, the Hurricane, much like $1 Million Baby, it was swinging for the fences. It's only disappointed it didn't get more Oscar nominations, but it did that thing where it released the last week of 1999, and then it went wide in January 2000. But we're gonna just count it as a 99 film. Out of 200, again, nice specific round number there, it came in at number 53. It had a budget of roughly $50 million and would earn that back domestically. But it would only get a worldwide total of 73. That's still not a lot, even in 1999. Top 5 movies of that year is Disney's Tarzan, the original Matrix, Toy Story 2, The Sixth Sense, and The Phantom Menace, Star Wars #1. Like I said, Denzel would be the only Academy Award nominee in this whole thing. He loses out to Kevin Spacey. Per IMDb, for Norm Jewisons' body of work, The Hurricane is his third most popular movie, just being beaten out by Fiddler on the Roof and Heat of the Night. This is a great movie, man. I'm glad we covered it.
Yeah,
is there anything you want to say about it? Did we miss anything?
I don't think so. I think it's a great movie. Once again, it's a lot more somber than a lot of movies. Like $1 Million Baby is a slow, somber movie, but I don't think the ending is as sad. At least this ends on an up note compared to $1 Million Baby. But I still think it's a fantastic movie to watch, and it's just a great performances all around. But it hinges on Denzel. It makes sense that if this movie was going to get nominated for acting Oscar, it would be him, not because he's Denzel Washington. Whoever gave the performance he gave in this role, the movie hinges on it. So, yeah, makes sense to me.
And then again, neither of us were able to read either of the books, and we don't really know much about the character's real life. But do you think they did the character justice? Trying to look up stuff like about John Artis, like there are websites still coming up talking about like, nope, the Hurricane is guilty 100%. He murdered those people in cold blood. It's really weird opinion pieces and a couple of major regional newspapers.
Yeah. I mean, I think it did him justice. And I was looking at some of the quotes from him about the movie. He enjoyed the movie. So I think that's what matters, if he feels he was represented correctly. So he was happy with it. So I'll leave it at that. Once again, I wish I had read the book, and I haven't, but he was happy with the movie, so cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Again, this is September 29th. Jaimel, what do you want to plug?
September 29th, man. Check out npccomics.com. We've got a couple new titles out there. Check out the newest issue of Scrap. Scrap #3 should be out right now. My latest series, Son Lars, should be collected. You might be able to get the collected edition right now. Issues 1 through 4, all in one handy dandy little package. Also, check out Blackjacks, which is the story of a military super team. If you like G.I. Joe or you like the Snake Eyes movie, check out Blackjacks at npccomics.com.
Nice. And then I'm just going to plug Kush and Kai #11, where we talk about the aforementioned Norman Jewisons Rollerball, James Caan. It's a fantastic film. And have you seen Rollerball?
Oh, I love Rollerball.
Rollerball is
the first one, not the second one.
The first one. Yeah, the second one's strange. We will never talk about that. However, check out Kush and Kai #11. Otherwise, I've been Kush Hayes.
I've been Jaimel Hemphill.
Sweet, Science Cinema. Sweet, Science Cinema.
From the BosNet family.
I'm uncomfortable.